Greetings, everyone. Wishing you all a good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
This evening, we will read an introduction to the topic of love as it is described in the divine order and the universe. And we both love this topic of love. Of course, what we read in this book is way beyond the most common meaning we mostly think of about love, that is, beyond the emotional or sensual love. The love in this system is like the tough love the elders used in the ancient communities that are involved in raising the children and youngsters. The divine system is like those elders, and we humans are at this level of our development are like teenagers that need to be sometimes lightly spanked or scolded, sometimes embraced with compassion, but mostly, to be limited by various boundaries through the things of worldly life. Because, we see that our biggest issue is not having healthy boundaries. We either will grow up or grow up, there is no other way. There are necessities of the evolution and development in this universe, and the whole system works for making us grow up and get matured, and sometimes, the events in life are boosted, just like this COVID-19 pandemic, as many other global events.
If only we could see each event as an opportunity to grow up more. Of course, there are individual and some small degree of communal reactions about taking measures for preventing such global pandemic etc., but still, generally we are in a mood if it does not hurt us, we don't care about such things. We cannot see things from a larger perspective. As you said, this is a sign of our adolescence mindset, and of course, we will live the consequences of such attitudes, altogether, as a family of humankind. Not as single individuals, not as single countries, but altogether. We see that borders cannot stop viruses. And as the events become more boosted, as you said, we will altogether see which kind of experiences we need to live through.
Humankind passed many tests and trials that appeared as life events by choosing either from selfish, sensual side or from the duty side of the conscience mechanism. But it seems that there are many more tests and trials, or exams we still need to pass with flying colors. There is a story I like to repeat in my lectures. In Japan, as the population grew, the demand for fresh fish increased. And as the Japanese fishermen sailed to further into the seas, it became hard to keep the caught fish fresh in the tanks of their boats until they came back to the mainland. To keep the fish tasting fresh, the Japanese fishermen added a small shark to the tanks that the fishes were kept in. The shark did eat a few fish, but most of the fish arrived at the mainland in a lively state because the fishes were always challenged within the tank. This kept them moving just as they were at sea. Just like this, the opposites are needed to coexist in the world because we all know very well that if we become used to some conditions it becomes our comfort zone. Our psyche tends to keep this zone unchanged, fixed. Because of this tendency, if the simile is apt, we need small sharks nibbling at us so can we stay fresh. As we struggle against the challenges, we may reveal the many talents and powers we had left in the shadows so far. I see this as the desired outcome of all those struggles. That's why the Shoal system advises us to go within and study yourself, and some of us could do this and some of us couldn't do this. And those troubling and suffering events continue until humankind understand the lessons these events bring. So, it seems there will be more events like the current ones and we will be tested and trialed more and more.
Whatever we, as the family of humankind, need to get developed, is reflected back to us in those events. We must remember that these are possibilities for the development of our being, and the evolution of our spirit, as well. And as we read the passages about love, together we will think again, about duty, about conscientious deeds, about compassion.
Yes, let's start reading. As a matter of fact, the love that causes many events and tests and trials in the life of the world is one of the most powerful factors, playing a role in direct and indirect ways both in the constitution of essence knowledge and in the development of conscience. If love did not exist, the ways of acquiring essence knowledge and opportunities for the conscience mechanism to generate results in positive and negative directions would be quite reduced, and consequently the possibilities of observations and knowledge of comparison would be quite limited. This is because love helps to increase essence knowledge directly with the events it generates in positive directions by supporting the higher components of conscience, that is, by a conscious comprehension, as well as helping the increase in essence knowledge indirectly and automatically by way of knowledge of comparison arising from the suffering and tormenting results it causes, when necessary, by activating the lower components of conscience mechanism. For example, the loves we mentioned above that caused much sufferings and knowledge of comparison by sending one man to prison and the other to a mental hospital to be eventually killed, set examples for indirect developments with their influences taking effect in apparently negative ways, although in reality, they are positive. Other than two previous examples of love, here we give an example of its influence that is seen in a positive way. An inexperienced young man loves a woman for great and noble purposes, and he has been advanced greatly in the stage of conscience. However, the woman rejects him by not seeing in him the qualifications she requires. The young man, determined to attract her affections and attention, starts right away to work on increasing his qualities and adding values to himself. At first, he does this by the automatism of love. As he succeeds, the scope of love begins to expand and its meaning to change. By this means, he feels more the need to cultivate himself and strives for creating works beneficial to mankind. He begins to love everybody and to be loved by everyone. Love becomes generalized and loses its initial simple and one-sided form within the endless directions of a general and encompassing interest, and so he increases his essence knowledge with the myriad conclusions he encountered as he advances in the path of his initial love, and enters into a state of being which is active at the level of a high equilibrium of conscience and is prepared for the knowledge of duty.
As you previously mentioned, the description of love expressed here is not the love we know about. And again, love is another device used in our developmental mechanism. In this sense, rather than an emotional state, we see love as an existential level, an opportunity for inclusion and advancement. Again, we read about love as a mechanism we utilize for increasing the essence knowledge. We will read soon about the manifestations of love as we know them. Yes, they exist as well, but to become more aware that all those manifestations of love are means for our development is a very important point. These are indications for us, showing the levels we reached so far. You know, for many years, we have given lectures on love, because this is a fundamental issue of humankind. And now, as we speak about the importance of raising a child with love, we can add this awareness to our words, that is, the awareness that love is a developmental mechanism, and the awareness about the level we are at. In the previous weeks, some examples of murderers etc. were given, but here, in this passage, this example of the young man, that showing developmental levels is so nice. Love is a means in his development. Love changes young man's perspective and he reaches such a level that he does not need the love of his lover anymore. Because he becomes integrated, and learns to love people as he learns to love himself, and in this way, we see that he utilized love as a developmental mechanism. And, we describe these different appearances of love, and in the further pages, we will read that the word of love will be described as a factor preparing us to the plan of love. But for now, in this crude matter state we are at, this passage makes us think about this question: which appearances of love we are able to manifest.
Indeed, love is like a catalyst. It triggers so many chains of events, just like the legendary conflict of the Trojan War. Love was a triggering effect leading two countries to war and causing many people to go through tests and trials. Or like the legend of Layla and Majnun. Young Kays falls in love with Layla, and because he becomes obsessed with this love, his tribe gives him a nickname, Majnun, meaning crazy. But the father of Layla forces his daughter to marry a merchant. Majnun becomes a wanderer in the desert, searching for his love. This searching leads him finding the true love, the love of God. Well, appearances of love are like the existential carrots. I walk or run to get the carrot, but the real purpose is to make me walk that path. Because, as I walk the path, my muscles get strengthened. It is a kind of training. And each time I reach a target and get the carrot, another carrot appears. Another target, another aim. And in this example we read, again we see how the opposites work, ensuring our forward motion. As we advance on our path, the efforts we make in the name of gaining certain things are actually widening our capacity to comprehend, or revealing our being's true capacity. And within our life plan, I think appearances of love have a role for orienting us to certain directions. The relationships of love direct us to certain junctions, and when their tasks are completed, they disappear from our lives like shooting stars. Yet, we see that we arrived at where we are destined to be, and in that sense, we see that nothing is accidental.
And these experiences are so precious, so valuable. And, please remember, we are always getting help and assistance from our own being as well as from our guides and other beings in duty. As you said, we encounter some settings, some scenes that contain the power of attraction we call love, and we become attracted to many experiences. So can we learn certain lessons we must acquire from and through them. And the awareness of this process, that we attracted to experiences we need to learn lessons from, and that we need to release it after learning our lesson, is much more precious.
Let's continue reading. When love is mentioned, it should not be interpreted in its narrow sense. Love in the narrow sense, as mankind understands it, is a small though significant part of the great role and immense concept that love plays in the developmental mechanism. That is, the love we mention here has infinite facets and forms. The vast meaning of the roles of love in relation to the conscience mechanism, or more correctly, developmental mechanism, must be dwelled on. It is only by doing this that its value in evolution can be stated. Therefore, let us explain love in this general sense. Love is an attraction felt towards anything. Everything, every reality in the world can attract mankind and beings in every stage of development, depending on situations and person, towards itself in various manners. Therefore, at every level love can be felt towards anything. So, love is such a general and encompassing topic. Even the physico-chemical interests that matter displays towards each other are perhaps the most material and primitive preparation for love seen in superior beings. These are a necessity for the particular needs and imperatives of the beings in that stage. Plants importing food from outside into their structures, absorbing oxygen and carbon dioxide of the air and mixing these with their sap, and even turning some towards the sun or absorbing and digesting animals into themselves, are manifestations of this attraction in the disposition of various instincts seen in most often physico-chemical appearances. We start to see these attraction states of love manifesting in plants through various simple mechanisms, in animals as less materialized states, which are more or less closer to the ones in mankind. Among animals it is possible to observe the varieties of friendly interests with their cubs, partners, family and friends, and even with others than their own species that sometimes take on the complete scenery of love. As to mankind, the high and rich manifestations of love that is felt with a rather expanded comprehension appear at this stage.
Yes, with this passage, the concept gets wider. Now, as we look at love from this wider perspective, we gain the awareness that love is everywhere, is within everything and influences each and every matter particle. As this pop song goes, love is in the air. The attraction of 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom makes up a water molecule, and this is just another manifestation of love. By now, we know that everything is alive, and even if the attraction between atoms which we used to assume as inanimate is out of love, then let's imagine the automatic but natural manifestations of love among plants, animals, and humans. As plants absorb water in the soil through its roots, humans reach out to each other to give and take. All of these are due to the law of attraction. And again, the sequence of developmental stages occurs, in animals, from automatic to instinctual, and in human stage, from instinctual to semi-comprehending. Again, we see how this development occurs gradually, in stages, in phases. And we see most interesting examples in animals, don't we? Cats and dogs, or cats and birds, cats and mice, etc., when they grow up together, they can play, sleep, and eat together. We may even say that we are witnessing this gradual development in animals. The manifestations of their development become more observable. And our dear friends, if they watched our previous videos, can remember our discussions on the developmental stages of the being, starting from the matter particles to plants, to animals, and finally, to humans. And each stage has its own almost infinite degrees material vibrations, from crude to subtler. For us, humans, the crudest vibrations in our stage is the sensuality or earthly cravings, our egocentric self. As we experience the outcomes and consequences of acting from these crude vibrations or levels, gradually our comprehension increases and widens, as well as the vibrations of love. And we begin to notice that we are progressing within the wider development of our being, from cruder to subtler states of love. And the knowledge of comparison allows us to compare our earlier states with our current states. For example, I am within a state of spending effort to understand what I need to change or work on to transform within me, by comparing the states of Oya in my past with the states of Oya in today. And all of us are in this need. And another important point is to know and respect for others' needs for manifesting their own attractions, because each of us comes to this world with the seeds of this need, so, we must know that this is different for each of us and we must respect the level of experience of others. Yes, we are responsible for each other, and as we manifest the ever-subtle vibrations of love in our life, we become examples for others, and it becomes a natural process. And because we are more aware of others' manifestations than ours, gradually, we become the guides or trailblazers for each other.
If, as we read in this passage, the attraction felt toward anything is love within our universe, within this whole galaxy system, then, the gravitational forces within a planetary system are a kind of love. When we look at the equilibrium of the galaxies, of the celestial objects revolving around each other, we can see a manifestation of love, because this is an attraction. Of course, when we say I like or I love, our attractions are much more emotional and egoistical. In the chat box, one of our friends makes a joke, saying, I like cars, but they are too expensive. Yes, they are, but what do you do next? As you think, act and move towards that thing you want to have, you want to acquire, you want to own, that car becomes your carrot. Instead of laziness, the extra efforts you made to earn and acquire the needed amount of money to buy that car nudge you into myriad dialogues, myriad events with other persons. While your individual aim is to have that object, the attraction you feel towards having that thing, all those processes you live through with other persons serve to your conscientious breakthroughs. And you earn enough money to buy that car, and suddenly weather turns to bad and hailstones damage your car, just like it happened recently in Istanbul, or a flash flood sweeps it away. In such instances, when sometimes we lose something or someone, we feel extreme attraction towards, the developmental system brings out such an experience to break our strong and hindering identification. Sometimes, in order to break our strong identification, we need to lose a material object or a pet or our most favorite shirt, etc. Sometimes, this is our health or our loved ones. And I think, the hardest to encounter is the death of one's child or children. Imagine the advancement of a person towards the unconditional love as she or he willingly sacrifice their selfishness and spend energy and time for a child or another person. Well, we humans always have conditions when it comes to love someone. We demand good looks, we demand good income and real estate, we demand and demand to get, to have, to receive from that person. There was a sentence in one of the earlier spiritual communiqués we studied in our society, and it says love is to complete a shortcoming of a being. Yet, our general tendency is to take love to become complete. However, this sentence means willingly completing a part of someone lacks or inexperienced. So, to do this, first we need to accept that person as she or he is. I think this is one of the trainings of love we cannot easily succeed in this world.
You reminded me that I had used the love one feels for his or her child as a model. I mean, love for your child contains so much caring and tolerance that you say all right to whatever they do. I had thought that if we humans can have that kind of love, maybe we could apply this love as a model to our other relationships. I had thought that the knowledge of how to love like this is within me, and I accepted this and act accordingly. So, in the past, for a period of time, I tried to apply this model of loving to other people, of course, up to the degree of my comprehension. And of course, I needed to analyze many things within me in that period before I begin to apply this. For example, taking the balance of giving and taking into account, discerning the persons I apply this kind of loving, etc. Eventually, I saw that I could reflect that kind of love mother feel for their children to persons that are not my children. I used it as a model for a long time. And gradually, this became a part of me. And now, loving a human being just because he or she is a human being is a natural state for me. Of course, reaching this point required many efforts and awareness from me. And of course, I need to go higher, even just a little, in this level of loving. Well, this is the aim for all of us, after all. Of course, we cannot do this all the time, with each identity or state. Still, this model is within us and we can utilize this. For example, love for and of animals is higher than the general application of love among humans. Because animals don't have any resistances, and they give you as they take from you. You feed a pet with love, but your pet feeds you with love, as well. But we humans have many resistances to give and take love. So, please, try to imagine this model as a love without such resistances, and then we can have more possibilities to use this model in different situations, in different manifestations. If we can, this will be a beautiful experience to transmit and reflect the subtler vibrations or higher and further levels of love.
Well, our friends send many questions. One says, you said that love is to complete a shortcoming of a being. How can we know what is that shortcoming? Well, indeed we cannot properly know what others actually need. There is a short story we heard from our dear spiritual teacher, the founder of our foundation, Mr. Eric Dull, when he was talking about the difference between the emotional conscience and rational conscience. It goes like this. A haggard-looking old man regularly visits a bakery at the late hours, just before the shop is to be closed for the night, and each time he asks a stale bread from the baker. The baker lady pities this old man, and one day she decides to do a good deed. She cuts a stale bread and spread lots of butter inside it, and when the old man comes that night, she gives that bread to him. But just before she finishes cleaning the shop and locks the door, old man comes back in a fury, shouting to the baker, "What have you done, woman? You ruined everything." Baker lady gets confused but says, "I pitied you. You have been asking stale bread each night. I wanted to help you by putting some butter so you can eat a little bit better." But of course, she had assumed that the old man was poor and couldn't afford freshly baked bread. Because the old man is a well-known architect, and as he draws his designs, he has been using the inside of stale breads to erase and correct small details. As you can imagine, because of the buttered bread, his design is now completely ruined. We are not unlike this baker lady. We look at the external surface of things and external appearance of people, and we assume things, we act from those assumptions. And most of the time, as nicely implied in this story, what we see as a shortcoming and try to complete in someone is not what that person really needs. So, to be able to observe and understand what is the real need of the other person is very important. And when we talk about shortcomings, please do not consider or think the material things. For example, if I observe a shortcoming of compassion in a person I love, then my trying to complete his or her shortcoming by becoming more compassionate or by displaying compassionate examples may be very good. Unfortunately, people confuse quality with quantity, especially the hard-working parents of today's children. Because of the hours spent in the office, parents feel guilty and try to make up those hours of the week by shopping with their children at the weekends and buying them all kinds of toys and gadgets. However, they may not be aware of their children's real needs, such as spending some quality time with their parents, maybe a basic need like just sitting and talking together. So, please remember that completing a shortcoming of a loved one is not an easy feat, and we, ourselves, have many shortcomings that need to be completed as well. Well, Oya, this is a question for you. Do animals love without asking something in return?
I don't know about your experiences with animals, but I can talk about mine. Animals come to you both for giving and taking love. And they always demand love, this is certain, and also, they always want to give love. If you have cats, please observe how they simply decide to sit on your lap or chest or near to some certain parts of your body. They know the parts of your body that need some healing, and as they purr, they send healing vibrations and energies. And if you have dogs, you already know that they never stop asking for love, and as Tülin mentioned, working parents with children, similarly, dogs demand quality time from us. And I think, during those focused and concentrated time periods we spend with animals, we humans experience some transcendent states and moods that are beneficial for both of the stages of development. Because we know that the next stage of development for animals is the human stage, so we look at them as beings preparing for the human stage. And the influences they receive from us will be utilized in their further steps, so, in that sense, nothing is wasted or lost. That influence does not vanish.
Another question came. Is the idolatry love? Let's reread this sentence in this passage. Everything, every reality in the world can attract mankind and beings in every stage of development, depending on situations and person, towards itself in various manners. Now, after reading this, we can be understanding about a fellow human being that is in that level of development. And all of us keep on progressing on our journey by going through all those realities. In that sense, his or her attraction to this or that idol expresses that being's level of love, in accordance with that being's reality. In that reality, that person feels an attraction towards that thing, but in time, as that person's capacity of comprehension widens, all those meanings person assigned to that thing weaken or vanish, and a new attraction takes its place, now, in a higher level. In short, as the being advances and its capacity of comprehension increases and widens, the scope and values of the things the being feels attraction towards change and widen. In that sense, yes, in a reality at the level of idolatry, that person is still manifesting love in his or her way. Just like plants expressing and experiencing love at the level of instincts, and animals express and experience love at the level of instincts that are approaching to intuitions, humans, as well, express and experience the appearances of love at the mechanic and automatic instincts, intuitions, more or less comprehending and then, semi-comprehending levels. Let's continue. Here, it is necessary for us to elaborate on the true nature of love. In order to properly explain the relation between love and the body, it would be helpful to revisit the knowledge of matter combinations in the earlier pages of this book. Before anything else, we would like to state openly that the knowledge we will give about the love component's constitution mechanism in the body, which is known as an emotion, as previously said, contains the constitutions of all feelings and enthusiasms that manifest in the body and which are called psychological. In the light of this knowledge, it becomes possible to explain the constitution of all emotions existing in the body and their relations to it. Love that finds its highest form in the developmental stages of mankind is but the manifestations of the high and subtle vibrations, energies transmitted by some very subtle matter combinations of the body, either by a man's own refining experiences, that is, by the necessities and conclusions of his essence knowledge and plan applications, or by the intervention of beings in duty as a direct subject of a test and trial, some matter combinations and systems in such a high and subtle order that the vibrations and energies emanated by these subtle combinations put into effect a very powerful and attractive field, a magnetic field around him. However, by looking at the crude meanings expressed by words here, it should not be understood that we meant an ordinary magnetic flux. These are much more subtle than the magnetic waves we know and of a higher degree of quality which cannot be compared with them. And this field attracts other vibrations that may sympathize with itself. And in the same way, it is attracted by the magnetic fields to which other vibrations are subject. So, the words of bodies loving each other and loved by each other express these meanings. As long as these subtle matter combinations constituted for this or that reason continue, the vibrations they emanate continue as well. As they change, depending on the form and degree of this change, the quality and intensity of vibrations vary as well. When these combinations dissolve, vibrations are no more and the manifestation of love ceases, as well. It is known that all of these acts occur through influences coming from above in accordance with necessities. Now, let us imagine the reverse of it. There is another man whose body also builds some subtle matter combinations, but within different orders. Although these are rather quite subtle and fine in comparison with other physico-chemical matter combinations, they are still crude compared with the former love combinations. And the vibrations they emanate are antipathy and hate vibrations. They also, as they receive the vibrations of hate and antipathy emotions, are interested in their surroundings and send out the same vibrations to them. In this way, while sympathetic emanations are transmitted from the whole bodies of the former, antipathic waves constantly spread out to surroundings from the bodies of the latter. Sympathetic transmission has superior subtleties and powers, and if turned towards the matter combinations transmitting antipathy, these vibrations which are more powerful than them can erase and dissipate those combinations. For this reason, those who love and who can be loved have a much more powerful and efficient status than who bear hostility and grudges. This is very helpful knowledge that will be beneficial in the developmental application on the communal path.
This last sentence reminded me of folk saying, "The world goes round in the name of the good people." Yes, it is said that the influences of the healers and of the good people's selfless prayers are very strong. Well, now think about how many people live on the world. I mean, so many incarnations, and each incarnation has its own transmission. We transmit a magnetic field. I live in a big city, and my flat is on a street with an active traffic of pedestrians and automobiles. Sometimes, I look out from my window and watch those pedestrians and think, I wonder, which kind of influences they are transmitting right now. Because, you know, all of us, knowingly or unknowingly, transmit influences. Later, I join this crowd as I walk towards my office, and there are so many mechanisms are working at that moment, within me and within the rest of the crowd through the interaction of our magnetic fields. What are we transmitting to each other? We had discussed in the previous weeks, if you remember, if the fact is that we can transmit crudest matter vibrations as well as subtlest matter vibrations, then let's pause and open a field of awareness about the quality of our transmission at that moment, and then, we can move towards to transmitting subtler versions of it. I am a dentist and one of my earlier assistant had to go to the bank for some transactions. Yes, back then, we didn't have bank apps. And each time, she was becoming nervous about meeting a bank teller lady. According to my assistant, this bank teller lady was too blunt, intolerant, etc. One day, before she went out to go to the bank, her anxiety was so obvious that I asked her to take a deep breath and to try visualize that lady and to send her some loving energy. My assistant tried and told me that she sent some pink light to the heart of the bank teller. I said, good. Now go to the bank. Well, guess what happened? My assistant and the bank teller lady become close friends. How? Because my assistant asked her about her health as a small talk, and learned that she was suffering from an illness, and because my assistant have some knowledge about this illness, she gave some suggestions, etc. And please think, if we can cause such a change within us and consequently, within another person by such a small visualization, imagine what we can change around us if we can take a pause during the moments of anger, rage, sadness, jealousy, etc., and take a deep breath to open up a space for awareness and try sending some loving energies. Things may begin to slow in a completely different directions. The quality of our transmission or of our reaching toward others at a given moment influences the progress of the events, relations, etc. If we do the opposite, if we transmit to or reach others with crude influences, then their response will be similar to ours, and then, the event or interaction escalates and gets out of hand. But please remember a very important point: if both parties need to learn some lessons out of this escalation or resistance, then none of us will remember these subtle matter vibrations. Because nothing is always seen through pink glasses. If we need to experience the crude matter vibrations and to learn some necessary knowledge, then we have to go through it. First, we need to understand the states and consequences of crude matter vibrations. So can we compare these with the states and consequences of subtler vibrations as our capacity for love and conscience widens? And if we can become conscious at such a moment, if we can bring out a capacity for comprehension or an awareness, the possibility of changing our transmissions exists within us. And, as we read in this passage, energy of love is such an encompassing energy that as we try feeling it more intensely or strongly, we can feed and strengthen our magnetic field, as well as the collective magnetics field. Because we encounter this knowledge given in this book, because we read and study its passages, then the duty of bringing out and activate subtler matter vibrations is ours.
Again, we see in this passage that no matter how sublime, how transcendent the love or the spiritual state we experience is, this still needs to be an experience of matter. Yes, we manage to make matter tad a little bit more subtle, but still we have this experience through the system of perception, with our 5 sense organs, by the chemical processes activated by the mental imagery in our brains. We see someone and think, oh, my, so unattractive, or oh, my, so attractive. All those opposite reactions still depend on those material processes within our magnetic fields. And these last sentences in this passage are so important. Sympathetic transmission has superior subtleties and powers, and if turned towards the matter combinations transmitting antipathy, these vibrations which are more powerful than them can erase and dissipate those combinations. For this reason, those who love and who can be loved have a much more powerful and efficient status than who bear hostility and grudges. This reminds me what Jesus said. You have heard that it was said, eye for eye, and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. This has been generally misunderstood, but after reading this passage in the divine order and the universe, we can interpret this verse like this. When someone slaps you, instead of reacting and slapping them back, don't respond from the same level, because there is the choice or possibility of bringing out a different attitude, a different response. Turn the other cheek.
Yes, progressing toward becoming able to subtler vibrations or frequencies of love is so valuable. Still, we start from the crudest ones, and some parts of us are still preoccupied with those crude vibrations. For example, there are still wars, battles, conflicts on the world. At some geographical regions, such crude energies and influences are still strong, and the suffering experiences of fellow human beings living at those regions bring out some certain influences in the magnetic field of the world. And I think these varying qualities of different regions of the world is also another factor playing a role as our being outlines the life plan of its next incarnation. Depending on our being's needs, we are born into certain places, into certain families, etc. Depending on our choices, we become attracted to certain magnetic fields, and we are fed and feed with related influences.
One of our friends asks, are hate, fear, and sadness various realities of love? Actually, yes, these indicate the realities of love at the levels of earthly cravings, or sensuality. The opposite side of these are oriented towards the duty, at realities like altruism, selfless love, etc. And please notice this very important description in the passages we read this evening. Love is an attraction felt towards anything. So, when you hate someone, you are within an energetic bond or attraction between your magnetic fields, but from which side of your duality unit you experience this? From the opposite side of love. Just as we read here. This is very helpful knowledge that will be beneficial in the developmental application on the communal path. Yes, if we feel hatred, vengeance, resentment towards some persons, even if we don't see each other anymore, we are still bonded to each other energetically. Those persons receive our influence and we receive theirs. We keep on interacting through our magnetic fields. So please try seeing the ongoing wars and conflicts among nations, countries, religions, and sects as the indications of the level and quality of those realities. As their scope widens, individuals and the communities begin to love the whole existence. Only then Rumi's words can be repeated by more people. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. It doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come. Of course, this is a level of development when a human being begins to love the whole creation, and becomes aware that the cause and reason of everything is divine, then that person can truly love the created because of this love she or he felt towards the Creator. And how we can work towards such a level of development? The best point to start from is to notice the moments we declare I don't like this. I do like that, or I love this. I hate that. The situation, the thing or the person we do or don't like is still a duality unit and contains positive and negative sides. And knowing and noticing which sides appearances or manifestations we do or don't like, we prefer or we don't prefer may tell us many things about ourselves.
And also, there is this issue of twisting the meaning of love. For example, most of us understand love as dependence or fixation. However, true meaning of love should be understood as guided empowerment. For example, most parents don't have a healthy relation with their kids because some of them become identified with their children, some of them are over-controlling, some of them keep on imposing things to their grown-up children, etc. Of course, parents must intervene when necessary, but guiding their children wisely and from a certain distance may be much more beneficial for the kids, as well as the parents. Remember the example given in this book, of the child that learns about fire by burning his hand? Don't we all learn by falling and standing, by correcting our mistakes and errors? It is much better to lovingly guide a person by stating the possible outcomes as much as we can think and then, leaving the person to the embrace of his or her own being, and if that person needs first-hand experiences about some of those possible outcomes, then we must respect their choice. Even if they are our own children. Yes, I suggest to model the developmental mechanism of the divine order, that is, to be protective and caring and loving parents that set their children free, that respect their children's field of being. This is a model I try to apply in my personal life. Knowing that each being has this possibility for experience and this needs spectrum is wide, starting from the crudest matter vibrations to the subtlest allow us opening up to more vibrations of love and understanding, and as our capacity of comprehension increases, the vibrations we can reach up become subtler, and consequently, our magnetic field changes. In short, thinking and acting with such awareness, transmitting these subtler vibrations and influences, that energy and power of love is what we need to do.
One of our friends asks, doesn't hate emerge from ego?
As you may remember, we read that love is a state of emotion. And hate, as well as each of those myriad states within us, is a state of emotion, rage, anger, fear, etc. These are crude but strong matter combinations, and they keep on existing within us, unless we become aware of them in order to transform their vibrations. And as we notice these crude matter combinations within, as we become aware of the consequences of those states of emotion within us more and more, we may intend to move towards the subtler matter combinations, such as compassion, altruism, selfless service, etc. Yes, our efforts oriented towards this goal are actually a rehearsal for the plan of love. As we aim for and begin to experience initial levels of these subtle matter combinations, we begin to get a taste, or more correctly, intuit the true quality of the vibrating of love. We read in the divine order and the universe that the vibrations of love in the plan of love are much more subtle, much more transcendent, much more different in quality. And the subtlest vibrations of love we humans can experience in this world is only a small percentage of the sublime vibrations in the plan of love. In this world we run and run after happiness, yet it seems that all those possibilities for happiness are actually, as you said, are like carrots. I mean, these are meant to take us there, to ever subtler matter combinations, and eventually, to the plan of love. Because, when this world cycle ends, this is the semi-subtle milieu we will pass to, and we are now preparing for the subtler vibrations of this plan by our applications and manifestations of love in this world. And of course, there will be many levels and stages in the plan of love, as well, that are preparing us to the initial steps of the plan of duty. This is the progress of our being's development.
There are many questions about ego, egoism, egoistical behaviors, and how these can be related with love. Let me elaborate on this topic. First, we humans have ego. We cultivate this seemingly separate sense of a self with the outlines of our life plan, with the nurturing of the family we are born into, and with our learning and experiencing to survive in this world as an I. And this ego needs healthy boundaries for a balanced life, and this is not something we must eradicate. We all have ego. However, to be egoistical is different. It means being selfish, and in the divine order and the universe, this is described as earthly cravings, in other words, sensuality. And to describe the healthy status of our ego, let me quote dear Thamer Dovucci. He says, "Your ego must be around at same height with you, maybe 10 centimeters taller or 10 centimeters shorter. Yet if it crawls on the ground or inflated towards the ceiling, then there is unbalance." Let's go back the description of love, an attraction felt towards anything. And because of this attraction we go through myriad tests and trials in our life. And this evening flowed with love, dear Sister Oya.
Yet, it feels like we just started.
Yes, thank you dear friends for your attendance, questions and comments.
Good evening, everyone. See you next week.